My father was a hardline patriarch who was obsessed with having a son to work the farm. And girls just left. When the doctor said, "It's a girl," my mother didn't cry. My father did. Not from joy. From disappointment. We were already dirt poor. 2 daughters. 1 collapsing farmhouse. Bills stacked higher than the corn silos. And then there was me. The 3rd girl. My father told everyone it was God's mistake. He didn't even look at me. He wrapped me in a thin blanket and started walking toward the edge of the woods, probably planning to leave me at some abandoned trailhead. But he ran straight into the local Pastor Hill. Pastor Hill knew exactly what was happening. He talked my father down, arguing that a girl could at least do the chores and keep the house clean. He even promised to help settle some back taxes the family owed. That's the only reason my father didn't leave me for the coyotes that night. 2 months later, my mother was pregnant again. They became obsessed, pouring what little money we had into miracle cures to ensure the next one was a boy. I survived on powdered milk and scraps fed to me by my 7-year-old sister, Sarah. Years later, she'd joke, she was so tough. She could eat solid food at 6 months. I wasn't being tough, Sarah. I was starving. Finally, the heir was born. My mother acted like she'd birthed a king. She'd strut through the local market, flaunting my brother to every woman who didn't have a son, finally feeling like she had some status in her miserable life. Nobody had time for me. Most days, I was literally tethered to the bedpost with a nylon rope so I wouldn't get in the way of my brother's royal playtime. It's a miracle I didn't die. When I turned 5, it was time for school, but my parents refused to pay for my supplies or the bus fees. They didn't see the point in educating a girl. Then, I got hit with a brutal lung infection. I was burning up, coughing until I choked, night after night. Eventually, my brother started coughing too, and that's when my parents actually started to care, not about me, but about him. They took us to a local clinic. The doctor told them plainly,
"The girl has a severe infection. She needs a real hospital, or she's not going to make it. And you need to quarantine her, or she'll kill your son."
On the walk back, my mother clutched my brother and took off, walking as fast as she could to get him home. I was gasping for air, my chest tight as a vice. I kept screaming "Mom," but she never even glanced back. She was leaving me behind, literally and figuratively. The cold was bone deep. My vision blurred, my stomach was a knot of hunger, and then the world just went black. I collapsed in the tall grass by the roadside. When I woke up, I was under a thick, warm quilt. 3 boys were hovering over me, whispering and looking at me like I was some kind of strange creature they'd found in the woods. A kind, sturdy woman, Mary Miller, walked in with a bowl of chicken noodle soup. I inhaled it. But once I finished, she told me she had to take me home. In a town this small, everyone knows who everyone belongs to. Her sons followed us, calling my name and trying to make me laugh. Halfway there, it started to snow. The oldest boy, Leo, took off his oversized gloves and slid them onto my tiny, frozen hands. When we reached the porch, I heard Sarah's voice from inside.
"Where's Maya? She's been gone all night."
My mother's voice was cold and sharp.
"I hope the cold got her. At least she won't be here to make your brother sick anymore."
I let out a jagged, painful cough. When my mom opened the door and saw me, the look on her face wasn't relief, it was pure disappointment. My father just growled from the couch.
"God, she's still alive?"
Mrs. Miller looked at them, then at me. She didn't say a word, just turned and started walking away with her boys. The snow was coming down in thick sheets now. Leo let me keep the gloves, but the warmth was gone. I felt like a ghost standing in my own yard. My father barked at me to go out and slop the hogs. When I didn't move fast enough, he grabbed a heavy broom and lunged at me. But then, Mrs. Miller's truck screeched to a halt. She'd come back. She jumped out and stood between us, staring my father down with a look of pure steel. She looked at my bruised face, then at him, and said,
"You know what? Give me the girl. I've got 3 boys and no daughter. Since you clearly don't want her, I'll take her."
We did it by the book, as much as you can in a place like this. Mrs. Miller made them sign a notarized relinquishment form right there in the pastor's office. So, with $50, the deal was done, and just like that, I became Mrs. Miller's daughter. As I was leaving, Linda leaned against the porch, spitting sunflower seeds.
"She's a sickly little jinx. She's your problem now. Don't come crawling back in a month trying to get a refund, because we aren't taking her back."
Mrs. Miller, my new mom, dressed me in her youngest son's oversized hand-me-downs and bought me a pair of thick wool socks and sturdy boots. For the first time in my life, I had a warm breakfast every single morning. At night, she'd tuck me into bed and hold me close. She smelled like laundry soap and wood smoke. When I'd try to muffle my coughs so I wouldn't bother anyone, She just gently rubbed my back until I could breathe again. My 3 new brothers treated me like a fragile treasure, always letting me have the last bit of dessert or the best seat by the fire. It felt too good to be true. I spent every day waiting for someone to wake me up from this dream. Then winter really hit, and Mr. Miller came home. He'd been away working a grueling construction job across the state, only coming back for the holidays. He was a giant of a man, worn down by hard labor and quiet as a grave. When Mom introduced me, he just stared at me with a deep scowl. I could tell instantly, he didn't want me there. That night, I pretended to sleep while they argued in the next room.
We're living paycheck to paycheck, Mary.
I heard him growl.
We can barely feed the boys. What were you thinking, bringing another mouth to feed into this house?
She hardly eats anything.
It's not just about the food, Mary. You take a kid in, you're responsible for her for life. We can't afford that kind of commitment.
I'm out of cash and she needs a doctor. That cough is getting worse. Do you have anything left from your paycheck?
There was a long, heavy silence, followed by the sound of him sighing in defeat and the rustle of his work clothes hitting the floor. Before the sun was even up, Mom woke me. People in this town can't afford insurance on a seasonal worker's wage, so a trip to the clinic was a massive financial blow. You usually just prayed and hoped you didn't die. I gripped the door frame, refusing to budge. I was terrified that if they spent too much money on me, they'd realize I wasn't worth the cost and send me back to Frank and Linda. We were at a standstill until Dad walked over. Without saying a word, he scooped me up, tossed me over his shoulder like a sack of grain, and walked out into the cold. Maybe someone up there was finally looking out for me. Halfway to town, we ran into an old retired doctor visiting family. He took one look at me, listened to my chest, and told my parents it wasn't terminal, just severe malnutrition and exhaustion, he said. He gave us some medicine for free and didn't charge for the visit. After 3 days of rest, I could finally take a breath without feeling like my chest was exploding. By late December, the whole town was buzzing for the holidays. There was a huge Christmas market in the town square, and when Mom found out I'd never been, she insisted on taking me and the boys. Dad stayed behind. His foreman had asked him to fix his roof for free. Dad hated being used as free labor, but the guy still owed him 2 months back pay. He figured if he did the favor, he might actually get his money. Wage theft was a way of life back then. You could break your back for a year and end up with nothing. But despite the struggle, the market was packed with people trying to find a bit of holiday joy. Mom bought me a huge candy apple. None of my brothers got one, but they didn't even complain. I was staring at the lights and the crowds, trying to soak it all in. That's when I saw him. In a sea of happy faces, there was this little boy. 2 adults had him pinned between them, clutching his arms way too tight. He was fighting, tears streaming down his face. His mouth was wide open, gasping for air like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. I tugged on my mom's sleeve.
Mom, look at that boy. Something's wrong.
Mom took one look and her face went pale. The boy was dressed in fancy clothes, but he was barefoot. Even worse, his feet were raw and bleeding from being dragged across the asphalt. Mom's eyes narrowed, tracking them like a hawk. The couple looked frantic, trying to shove the kid into a beat-up old truck.
No!
But my mom, she's got a heart of gold and a backbone of steel.
in!
She grabbed us and marched straight into their path. The man had a thick out-of-state accent.
Hide! This is my son! This is a family matter!
But when Mom looked the boy in the eye and asked if he knew them, he just sobbed and shook his head violently. A crowd started to gather,
Show me some ID.
her voice echoing in the square.
Either we see some papers or we're calling the sheriff right now.
That broke them. Realizing they were about to get busted, they literally shoved the boy to the ground, jumped in their truck, and floored it, leaving a cloud of exhaust behind. Mom was leading us toward the station when a neighbor came running up.
Mary! What are you doing out here? Your husband just fell off a roof at the construction site. You gotta get to the hospital. Fast!
I saw the color drain from Mom's face. She was just a substitute teacher making pennies. Dad was the one keeping the lights on. If something happened to him, we were finished. My brothers were also freaking out. But she didn't crumble. She gave a quick statement to the police about the boy, then turned to Leo, my oldest brother. He was only 11, but she looked at him like he was a man. She squeezed his shoulder hard. Leo, you're in charge now. Look after your brothers and Maya. The snow started coming down in heavy, blinding sheets. Leo led us home through the drifts, but the joy of the Christmas market was gone. I looked at the candy apple in my hand, now covered in gray slush. I took a bite. It tasted like bitterness. Leo made some plain oatmeal for dinner, but none of us could eat. Only the mute boy we saved ate a full bowl. An old neighbor lady came over to stay the night with us. She kept stroking our hair and sighing, "That heavy God help